All right, hello everyone. Um, I'll be presenting my advertisement on my chosen topic was the legalization of performance enhancing drugs in professional sports and professional bodybuilding. Um, I chose this because it's very specific to me. I watch a lot of sports. Um, I want to say I'm a bodybuilder, but I'm certainly an avid gym goer. So, um, I chose specifically to focus on talking about anabolic steroids for this. Starting off with, if you look at the advertisement, it's a big catcher, just a big title of legalized anabolic steroids. It's a poster, and the target audience is for college sports players and young professional bodybuilders. Typically, you don't see older people taking steroids just because of the health effects. So you'll see younger people doing it because they are young and have a bit more to sacrifice. Moving on, it's going to be typically placed inside college gyms, private gyms, any place where younger people are over, the age of 18, because they are drugs, over the age of 18 or 21, we'll be able to see them. So college gyms and private gyms are typically good spots for that, and it's targeting exactly those people. This advertisement really doesn't apply to anybody else except those kinds of people. And the logical fallacy here, the fallacy in this specific advertisement is going to be that it doesn't really talk about any of the negative side effects of steroids, which are very, when you think about steroids, you think, oh, those are bad for you. You don't really think, oh, yeah, those are only good for you. Is negative side effects, so this doesn't really mention any of those at all. And then you'll notice with the design, I put a clip art picture of Arnold Schwarzenegger, the face of, bodybuilding, and he was one of the first to use performance-enhancing drugs, PEDs, when he won his Mr. Olympia back in the 90s or 80s. I'm not even sure, to be honest. It was a very long time ago for me. At the bottom, I also wrote Gold's Gym, Venice Beach, which is known as the Mecca of bodybuilding. But this ad should not be only directed to bodybuilders. It's directed to athletes, but you'll find that athletes and bodybuilders train alike in facilities like gyms. Okay, so moving on. I wrote, why decriminalize steroids in the professional sphere? And I gave 3 reasons for that. First of all, increasing muscle mass. So steroids can increase muscle mass and strength. That's one of the main benefits of using them. It allows athletes to train harder and recover faster. Next is that it will help lower body fat percentage. So steroids allow for the reduction of body fats, allowing for athletes to look like they're in their prime condition, regardless of age, height, any other factors. Third, increased energy. This is a big one. So steroids are going to increase overall stamina as well as peak energy. So, you're going to be able to lift or work or play a sport like football or basketball at a very intense rate for a long period of time. That's a pretty big one because we'll go with the football example. Football is a very physically demanding sport. So you'll find that players are often subbed off, switched around. It's actually an estimate that only 16 of the 48 minutes of football is actually like playing time. The rest is just like stoppage between timeouts and breaks. So that's a big one because it allows for more playing time, it allows for the athletes to do more, and it allows for people to be entertained better because they're playing for longer. Next up, I talked about some behavioral and performance for behavioral boosts. The ones I talked before were about performance and physical strength boosts. So, um, first of all, is the higher focusing ability. Steroids may increase a person's focus and declutter their mind. It lets people focus on one thing. It is well, steroids in general are very broad, so there's only some steroids that will help with certain things, but it's very known that steroids can help you focus on one thing or focus on something that you want to be focusing on. Next up is a higher libido. So since almost all steroids will increase, well, since almost all steroids will affect with your hormone levels, they increase testosterone levels by a lot. So a person's sex drive is dramatically increased when they're taking steroids. Additionally, they're going to be more aggressive and passionate, right? So this is another side effect of having more testosterone in your system is that you are going to be more aggressive. So this is not a bad thing for the people we're looking at here because it allows for increased push through workouts and sports matches. And if you're like a pretty good example I gave is if you're a defensive football player, or I'd like to give, sorry. If you're a defensive football player, you're going to want to be pushy and you're going to want to be forceful when you're playing your position. And your goal is to literally bring down another man to the ground. So you're going to need as much energy. You want to have that aggressiveness. You want to have that push. You want to be passionate. That's a really big help for athletes. So it's very enticing for people to come to support the idea of legalizing anabolic steroids in sports, right? Because players are limited by human abilities. And this will help unlimit them. It'll give them more almost power to play, to do what they want to do what they do best. Next is anti-inflammatory treatments. So this is a big one. We're going to go into the medical side of things now. And this is a big one because a small one is anti-inflammatory treatments. So steroids will help reduce inflammation and are used to treat a variety of inflammatory conditions such as asthma, arthritis, and autoimmune disorders. So that's a big one, right? Being affected by asthma, and if you're a track player, if you are running lots of laps, asthma is like a killer for your sport, right? You can't run. Not to mention that with that specific example of track, you're gonna already have that increased level of stamina. But if you can't breathe, that's a problem. So steroids can really help out with that, and it'll allow a lot of people to compete when they regularly wouldn't be able to. Next is accelerated recovery. So this is already legal in most cases, however not for most professional sports players. They may not use anabolics as a part of their treatment. And when major injuries occur in sports like American football, players can be out for months, if not years, causing them to miss games for their teams and contract opportunities. A direct example is with our LA Rams. Before we signed Odell Beckham Jr., he left us now. But before we signed Odell Beckham Jr., he was with the Cleveland Browns, and he was making $14 million a year for 3 years. He roughly made $46 million with them. When he came to the Rams, he made $3 million in 1 year. So the reason why that is because he got a torn ACL. He took a very long time to recover, and actually on his last game as a Ram, he got another torn ACL, which forced him to be out for another year, and he just recently signed to another team. But the point that I'm trying to get across here is that with the use of steroids and accelerated recovery, players will be able to be back in the field stronger than ever and with less risk of injury. And if they get injury, it's not a threat. It's not a danger. Lastly, wasting syndrome treatment. So anabolic steroids are prescribed to patients suffering from muscle wasting diseases like HIV/AIDS and cancer, to help improve muscle mass and quality of life. So this is a big one because if well, we'll go with Magic Johnson, the Magic Johnson example. Magic Johnson was he was diagnosed with AIDS, and he was given very experimental medicine, anabolic steroids, that enabled him to get over it, and that was like the first example of this, right? But sports players, professional athletes, they're going, I don't want to say they're going around, but they are certainly going around. Not that there's anything wrong with that. They're certainly going around, and they are, doing what they want to do. That has negative side effects in some cases, and this is a great thing that will help prevent, stop, even if it's already happened, eliminate any chance of like death for a player, which is a really big deal. But yeah, that is my advertisement on legalizing anabolic steroids for sports use. Now, obviously, it does bring in the there's arguments for why this is not a good thing. However, the point of an advertisement in here is to only talk about the good parts, the parts that I want people to hear as an advertiser. But yeah, if you'll notice, I did not mention any sort of any negative side effects. So that's the fallacy that I wanted to add here, because it's almost like false advertisement. I do forget the exact type of fallacy that is. However, it's a pretty big one. It's a pretty big deal. I'm pretty proud of how this all came out. Thank you, Professor. Have a good day.